Good morning. Today we're going to continue to be talking about Edgar Allan Poe's writing. The story that we're going to be talking about today is The Telltale Heart. It's one of my favorites, and much like most of Edgar Allan Poe's works, it's dark, it's got a mystery, it's different, and sometimes it can be a little hard to comprehend. So, as we go through the reading today, we're probably going to read about 2 or 3 paragraphs. I'm going to model some ways that you can use some of your comprehension skills to predict what's going to happen. We're going to be stopping and pausing at certain parts of the story, and I'm going to prompt you to predict things that are going to happen in the story. My hope is that by going through this with you, that you're going to be able to do this during your independent reading. That even when I'm not there to pause with you during reading, that you're going to be able to cue yourself to do that to better help with some comprehension skills, especially when text is hard to understand. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, I want to go over some vocabulary words that we've already gone over prior to this, but I want us to review them again. So the 3 words that we're going to see today are the words foresight, dissimulation, and vexed. And if you remember from yesterday, the word foresight means thoughtful regard for the future, so thinking about the future. Dissimulation means hidden under a false appearance, so kind of like a disguise. And vexed means troubled, distressed, caused agitation. So I'm going to highlight these words in the text for us as we go along so you can kind of remember and refer back to this vocabulary sheet if you need help understanding as we go along. So our first activity that we're going to do with this is called Think, Pause, Predict. The very start of the story, we're going to look at the title. It's called The Telltale Heart. What do you think the story will be about based on the title alone? Think about the words in the title. There's no right or wrong answer. This is just your prediction about what you think the story is going to be about. If I were going through this, I would think about what the word tell and tale mean. A telltale heart. Think about what you think that means and write it down. We're going to come back later to this and take a look at your predictions and see how much you got correct. I'm also going to let you share with a partner later. All right, let's move on to the next paragraph. So the very first paragraph. As I read this through, I know it's easy to kind of zone out and to not pay attention and just to kind of listen to me read. Listening is great, but following along as I'm reading is even better. Seeing the words is going to help you comprehend, as well as making a picture in your mind. I call it making a movie in your mind. Picturing what the words mean and picturing what the story is about is really going to help you. So as I read, try to do that. True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. Okay, so this paragraph is setting us up for this whole story to be told to us. Okay, so I want you to think who the narrator is speaking to. Remember, the narrator is the one telling the story. Think about who the narrator is speaking to. Again, we don't know necessarily at this point, but I want you to predict. That'll help us think further about what the story is going to be about. Okay, and once you got that written down, we're going to go on to the next one. Second paragraph. Again, make a picture of this. This gives some very vivid detail on this one that you can picture. That'll help you a lot. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object, there was none. Passion, there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue, with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degree, very gradually, I made my mind up to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Okay, so we know that the narrator has a problem with this old man and his eye. Interesting, right? So, who do you think the old man is? Think, pause, predict. Who do you think the old man is? Again, we don't necessarily know yet, but if you think you might have an idea, predict it. All right, once you've done that, let's go ahead and go to the next one. The third paragraph. Now, this is a longer one, but you still think about what we're reading. It has some of our vocabularies and words in there, so if you need to go back and look at your vocabulary sheet to see what those mean, they're in context in this story, so that might kind of help us remember what they mean. Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad? Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed that no light shone out, and then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously, oh so cautiously, cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture's eye. Think, pause, predict. Write down what you think the author means by the work. I'm going to go back to our paragraph. So he says the work here. So I'll read the sentence again. It says, you should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. What do you think the work is? What do you think that means? Now, I did something here that's very important when you're predicting or when you're trying to comprehend a story or answering questions for comprehension is going back and looking at the story again. If the story is available for you to go back and look when you're answering questions or predicting, please do that. That's a great skill. Going back and finding evidence in the text or words like I just found to help you make predictions. All right, once you have your prediction down, let's go on to the next paragraph. Or this is still the third paragraph continued. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight, but I found the eye always closed. And it was so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone and inquiring how he had passed the night. So, you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that very night at 12 I looked in upon him while he slept. All right, let's go to our think, pause, predict. Why does the narrator treat the old man so well in the mornings? I'm going to go back to our paragraph. It says, and every morning when the day broke, so when the sun came up, I went boldly into his room, another word for chamber, and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring about how he passed the night. So asking how he slept, being very nice, being very kind. So you see, he would have been very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. So why do you think he treated the man so well in the mornings? Write your prediction down. So that's all we're going to read today. But like I mentioned, my hope for you is that you're going to be able to do some of this independently as we continue reading this story. As you read, make sure you stop and pause and predict, or stop, pause, and reflect when you're reading a story to help you better comprehend it. Some different things are going to happen in this story. It's going to have a wild ending. I think you're really going to like it. You did a great job participating in this activity today. So today I guided the students through an activity called Think, Pause, Predict, showing them how to predict what's going to happen next in the story. Like I mentioned, my hope that they would be able to do this independently moving forward into the future, especially for texts that are a lot longer. In the We Do section of the lesson, I would have students probably pair up and share their predictions, probably at this point of the story, talk about what they think is going to happen. Those kind of things that are going to happen in the story. I would also encourage students that maybe have a harder time composing predictions or writing in general, if writing is kind of something that they struggle with, maybe even having them draw a picture or just something to help them pause and reflect on what they've read so far um, in the story.